Hey, this is David at Shepherd School, and today we're going to talk about firearm safety. We're going to talk about the 4 fundamental safety rules, right? And I know this isn't the coolest video in the world, but it comes apart because there's been some incidents here lately. Tex Grubner from TGO, a YouTube channel, recently shot himself in the leg while practicing. And, he came out with a video and discussed it, and people made all sorts of comments about him and everything, and I don't want to discuss what he did or how he did it, but I do have to give the guy some credit. He's putting these instructional stuff out, and he got himself hurt, and he came out and he used that in the positive. And then the other day, one of our local firearm instructors in Nashville, guy's been in the business for longer than I've been alive, ended up shooting his pinky off in class, and we're not going to get into details on that, but all sorts of forums and stuff talk about that guy quite a bit. But it can happen, and it doesn't really matter, how experienced you are. If you violate these fundamental firearm safety rules, you're a time bomb, And so we don't want anybody to ever be hurt, negligently with a firearm, period. So we're just going to take a little bit of time to go back over the firearm rules. Because if you have a firearm, you are responsible for its use. And if you don't know how to safely use it, you need to learn how to safely use it. So, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot. Keep it on safe until you're ready to fire. Keep your finger off the trigger until you intend to fire. Okay? So, let's talk about these. Let's break them down a little bit. The first one, treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Now, when I was a child, I was kind of raised with this idea, but it was kind of mutated a little bit, and it's a pretty common mutation that, like cancer, we need to beat out. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded is not the same thing as load every weapon, okay? Weapons should be kept unloaded and separate from their ammunition unless they're in use, okay? Now, we have a gun safe, and the majority of my firearms are in that gun safe. I've got a big ammo can and boxes of bullets, and they're kept away from that safe, okay? And they're only loaded when I'm out there about to use them. Now you say, hey Dave, aren't you a big carry permit type guy, home defense and those sorts of things, and what good are you going to do with an empty gun? Are you going to throw it at a guy like a brick? Well, no. Firearms that are used for self-defense, it isn't that the rule doesn't apply. The rule applies perfectly. Self-defense firearms can always be thought to be in use because you never know when you're going to actually need to shoot them. And if they're there for your safety, 24/7 or as you go out to work or whatever, they're in use for your safety, so they're in use so they can be loaded, okay? So like I said, the majority of my firearms are loaded in a safe, and the ammunition, away. But, I've got a couple guns, and for, OPSEC, I'm not going to tell you what, but a couple, that are loaded, and they fit with the plan. One's for the wife and the cell phone to call the police, and one's for me to tell the guys the police are on the way, get on out of my house, But self-defense guns are always in use, and so they can be loaded, all right? But you have to ask yourself, does the convenience and the purpose of having a loaded firearm outweigh the dangers of having a loaded firearm in the house? You have to ask yourself that, The second thing is, never point your weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot. Firearms are tools, just like a hammer. You don't hit anything with a hammer that you don't want to bust. You don't hit anything with a saw that you don't want to cut, right? So never point your firearm at anything that you do not want to put a hole with, because a firearm is a long-distance drilling device. It puts holes in things away from you, okay? So don't point at anything that you don't intend to put a hole in. Now, the next one is keep your firearm on safe until you're ready to fire. Okay? In that TGO video where Tex was talking about how he shot himself, he was talking about how he switched holsters in training, in the one holster, you had to take one action to pull the gun out, and the second one, you had a different action. But he got in kind of a training loop, and when he went to draw the gun from the second holster, he used his thumb in the same way he was doing previously in the day, and that actually disengaged the safety device on his gun. And so his gun was off safe. As he pulled it out, he accidentally touched that trigger, and he shot himself in the thigh with a .45, which is, by definition, a bad day. So there's been cases of people, drawing a gun out, taking it off safe as they pull out, shoot themselves in the hip, shoot themselves in the thigh, whatever. So do not put your gun, take the gun off safe until you're actually on target and you were contemplating shooting. Once you're ready to shoot, then you take your safety off. You don't take it off in the draw stroke, because anything can happen from here to there, okay? So keep your firearm on safe until you are ready to fire. Then the last one is keep your booger hook off the bang button until you intend to fire, okay? Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you intend to fire. If you've got your gun up, right? And you take the safety off and your sights are lined up. Once you're ready to actually shoot, then you put your finger on the trigger and pull it back. And there's some other firearm schools, some good firearm schools, and there's been some misconceptions over the years, especially with Cooper. He taught, on target, on trigger, right? And a lot of people say, well, that's a violation of 4 firearm safety rules. But if you realize, Cooper said, don't ever put your gun up on the guy until you intend to shoot him. Keep it down. There he is. Get away, leave me alone. I've called the police, help, whatever. And the guy's still advancing and he's a threat, and you've determined that lethal force is justified. When you bring the gun up, you're intending to shoot. So put your finger on the trigger, fire however many rounds that you need to end the threat, and then bring the gun off target. And when you come off target, you don't intend to shoot anymore, so he takes his finger off the trigger. So you have to realize these rules are fundamentals, and fundamentals mean that it's a basic building block, okay? And as you understand the building blocks, you can apply them to build bigger things, to increase your skills. But if you can't get these 4 fundamental processes down, then you're not ready to do anything more advanced. And you're not really ready to have bullets for your gun, okay? So if you ever want to progress from Barney, you need to go ahead and learn these rules. And don't just learn the rules rote and memorize them. See how they apply. Figure out why the rules are what they are, okay? And so, treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Never put your firearm in anything you don't intend to shoot. Keep the weapon on safe until you are ready to fire. Keep your finger off the trigger until you intend to fire. If you do those 4 things, you shouldn't have any accidents ever. Okay? So, until next time, you can always catch us online at www.tngun.com.
I've got a plan, fits my point of view. I'm